Okay, let's get the top of this hair, and then we'll probably bounce back to the hands. Then we'll do the eyes and the mouth, and we can call this guy about done. Even at the end of the day, after we're carving, look at that piece of machine mark that I still have up here on the top of his head. So let's get that machine mark gone. We'll go ahead and get rid of that pencil line that we established earlier. Now this right here is going to be up to you. I'm going to, and what I mean by up to you is how far up. You can bring the hair all the way up, but I like to come in just about 1/8 of an inch. And again, I'm just freehanding it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I do want to bring that back a little bit though. We're going to bring this back for the contour of the head. We did it earlier, but I didn't quite go as deep or as far back as I wanted to go. Like so. There we go. I'm looking like I got a little bit of a high spot. Y'all can't see. A little high spot right there. You see it, how it goes down and then it kind of flares up. Just going to knock that high spot off. Right there. And just round this. Now, the last thing I'm going to do before I set the underneath part of that hair is I'm going to take like a number 5 or number 7. This, I don't know which one this is. This is a number 7, and I'm just going to come through that hair just to give it a little bit of a curve. You see how we're just coming through that hair? It's just going to give it a little bit of extra curve, a little bit of extra funny in there, like so. Right. And now we're going to come in just on the inside of that, like we drew earlier, about an 1/8 or so. And we're going to take a V-tool, whatever V-tool you got that is sharp, or a number 11, which is the first tool I picked up. And we're just going to chase the pencil line away. I'm not too hung up on it being perfectly symmetrical with an 1/8 of an inch. I just want the pencil line gone because I don't have to chase it down around later. Like there, something like that. And we're just going to clean that up. Had a little trash there. And a little trash there. I want to come in. I just want a little bit of a shadow line, a tiny bit right there, just to separate my eyebrows. I have a big belief that sometimes a little cut can make a very powerful statement if it's just in the right spot. They don't have to be. Now, you see how this one right here comes up and then down? That little shadow line right in there. I just want to knock that point off. So sometimes it's just about that little point. There's a little point right there and a little point right there. And that looks good. Now this is coming up here. I just want to roll around something just to see. That'll work. All right, that's just something in my brain. So we say we're going to do the hair. This is just a matter of coming in behind the ear first. And I'm going to do a series of small cuts sneaking up on that cut instead of doing a big gigantic cut and it breaking with the wood grain in a place that I don't want it. And now we're going to come over here and just roll it down because on this side it will allow me to do that. And right here we can roll it down. Here, I don't know if you heard the popping. So there was one place that the wood grain didn't like right in there. Now, if I take and come in here, that's going to take a really tiny, big bite. And I don't want to do it because it's with the grain. So instead, you see how I went my depth, and now I'm just going to go down and it pops out automatically. But if I did it the other way, it would have popped out a lot more than I probably wanted. Just transition all these high spots now, getting them, I mean, you don't want to get them like sandpaper smooth, but you don't want no big weird line in there that represents some sort of plane that doesn't exist. And that was a little deeper than I wanted it to go, so now I've got to round out the rest of this to smooth it back into that. Let's go and pick a V-tool on the back side of these ears just to give it a tiny bit of shadow line, right like so. And a tiny bit of shadow line here. Now, about the only thing I'll do on an ear, and then we'll pop those eyes in there. The main thing on an ear is a lot of times people will come in here and go straight in. You actually want the front of this ear to come down and back, right? Let me get my glove out of the way because it's doing that weird pixelated thing again. You want it to come down and back. Don't carve your inner ear part straight in and make it look like a C. It's going to give you a weird looking ear. Instead, we want to come down around, and right here it's going to start grabbing. So just come back this way and just touch it out. Because now you can take, and get right there. Because now you can just take a little bit of a thing and make a pointy V right there, and that'll make whatever that thing's called, a tragus or targus or whatever it is. Now that side looks kind of like an S. Now you can get fancy and come on around here, and you can come in here and do this or that, but I find the least amount of stuff you play around with, the least amount of time you can run into some trouble. Again, it just curves in and back, puts you a little V right at the inside right there. Something like that. And that's pixelating bad with that glove on. So let me take the glove off. Famous last words. I want to come in here. Now I'm not wearing the glove other than it is making the screen pixelate very bad. Do not carve without your glove. All right. Same way here. Now look, I'm saying don't carve without your glove, and I am, but I want you to see that I'm holding the tools. I'm not white knuckle carving where something should break. Now, can you get cut anywhere? Absolutely. But I'm also telling you the only reason I'm calculating this risk is because I'm using it with very minimum force. But it's also showing up a lot better for you guys. So all I did was make a triangle right in the front of that ear. You see how now the ear looks like it's going down instead of straight in to the face. All right. So hands are not as hard as people try to make them out to be. I will tell you that hand is smaller than that hand. And what we're going to do to combat that is we're going to measure this hand right here, and we're going to measure this hand. Look how much, whoops. So that hand is there, and that hand is right there. So we're going to turn this one down. You see how we're just going to turn it at a downward angle. And that's going to give us a different shape, and it's going to narrow it back in. I am going to put the glove back on for this after I take a sip of Dr. Pepper. And when I say sip, it's probably, half a bottle. get this mountain of wood chips off my lap because I haven't leaned back or done anything. And I was going to get the glove, but I took the glove off 30 seconds ago and it's fallen under me. So we have to now reach it. You have to do that squat and grunt when something falls underneath your desk and you have to get it with your foot. That's always fun. That usually happens with pencils. I'll drop a pencil and that thing will roll like 75 feet, it seems like. But why do we always go digging for it when we have two more pencils right in front of us? We go digging for that pencil that's like 20 feet away. I kind of have to because my dog will go and she will decide that it's her new chew toy. So, and I don't know if the knucklehead's supposed to, have graphite in her system or not, but I don't know if you've ever heard a dog biting or chewing on a graphite pencil. It is the worst sound in the world. Now, 2 or 3 things. Thin blade. All right. Thick blade. Now, the only reason I grabbed one over the other is the upward shape on one over the other. Right? This one's also narrower or more narrow this way. The other thing, and it means nothing to you guys, I've been using this knife for a while and it's starting to feel very comfortable in my hand. Now, there's a lot of talk about comfort. I think differently. I think the more comfortable a carving knife is in your hand, the more out to make a mistake you become. So if you're carving with something for 30 or 40 minutes, you get comfortable, that's when you slip and because you relax yourself. So I will change up on carving knives. Not that one cuts any better or worse than the other. It's just because it now has a different feel. So I'm more aware of it in my hands. Everybody also makes fun of the fact that I've got like 18 different brands of tools. And that's the same reason is they all have different handle shapes on them. And I'm more aware of a new handle shape as opposed to carving with a bunch of the same stuff. Now that's just an oddity on my part, but it works for me. Now, again, I just want to tell you about how if you see this knife, you're like, why did he switch? It wasn't anything other than I've been carving with that other knife for a while. And I just wanted to put it down for a little bit because I'm getting very comfortable with that knife. I'm using a big gouge for this, and it's a straightish gouge. Not straightish as in that's some sort of word that I've made up. It's just straight-ish. It's got a little bit of a curve to it, right? So now that we've got that thumb in there, I'm still constantly thinking, what is this guy doing? Because if you look at this guy, we kind of put his thumb up on the fabric. So it's doing something. But this one was just, I had to give you guys a picture to kind of entice you to come and watch. It's not the exact same one. I made his hands bigger. So this guy looks like he's begging, begging, begging. Because look, you see that how that hand is right there and just a little bit out of the way. He's begging to have a walking stick. Okay. So just take this thumb back just a little bit like so. Let's clip the thumb out there. And now you can run you a gouge in there, or not a gouge, a drill, and you can have you a little walking stick in this guy. It's not as cool as the Jedi that we started out with earlier, but he's kind of cool. I'm just clipping that thumb back, right like so. This one, I'm going to clip the thumb and raise it just a little bit. You see how we're just going to push that thumb up a little bit? And that's going to further accentuate this thinning of this other hand here. Now, I tell you that measurements and stuff don't matter. Symmetrical stuff doesn't matter. That is true. However, if you have two hands in close proximity and one of them has this part of the hand, because this part of the hand is going in right here. That hand's going out like this, right? So it's going to go from knuckles. You see how it goes in and then in? It cannot. It has to be one plane, right like so. Now, let's look at this plane. This plane needs to knock back, just like that mouth we talked about. Knock back this way and knock back that way. That creates the arch. Now, if I go from knuckles right here to knuckles right here, these knuckles need to be in the same area. You cannot have hands that are close and have one of them have fingers that are 10 times longer than the other. Again, this needs to go from here. Let that stop pixelating. You see how it's curved in there? It needs to go from those knuckles down this way and then hide underneath that cloak or that robe, and then this way. And then here, I got to sneak in that way. So now when these fingers come down this way, we're going to create 3 planes on them as well. We're going to create a flat plane in the middle, and then it's going to go up this way and then down that way and then off the finger. Same way here. We can now manipulate this hand a little bit more, and it's, if we leave it at that angle, let me see if that's getting in there. Let me get this light. There we go. You see how this is the width of the hand? So from here to here, and then from here to there. We need to tickle just a little bit of that off, because if we don't, it's going to make those fingers look like they go way down in there. Don't pop your knife like that. I don't know why it's popping. I'm not trying to pop it. I'm not a knife popper, but for some reason that angle down in there is making it sound like I'm picking at it, and I'm not. All right. So now we want a flat plane from the knuckles to the tip of our fingers, and then we want to come up this way, and we want to come up this way. And I'm going to narrow that hand just a little shorter. Now, we want to create that angle. What I'm creating is the angle that goes in both directions. A lot of times people get quick or shortcutty, okay, and they just make a box. There's 5 major planes in a hand, and we're going to talk about hands here. 1, 2, let me take off the glove here, because maybe this is something that'll resonate with somebody out there. All right, so stop thinking of a box. Think of 5 and 3. There's 5 main planes on a hand. This is plane number 1. Plane number 2 is this plane. Plane number 3, and then plane number 4 is your fingernails. Plane number 5 is off of the hand and to the thumb. I can't tell you how many times I've judged a wood carving competition and I see a thumb up here. So if you want to take your thumb now and pull it up there and feel how unnatural that feels, right? Your thumb is never there. Even if you lay your hand out flat, that thumb, you can feel it, and it goes, there's a drop from here to there, even though it's on a flat surface on the side of your pants or whatever. If that alone, if you just correct that plane on a lot of your hands, they're going to make more sense. So that's why my thumbs are way away from the original part of the hand. Okay. So I said 5 and 3, that's your main planes. There's also 3 planes in every section and every cross section of those 5 planes. So what I mean by that is this is plane number 1, and then it goes this way, which is plane number 2, and then it goes down this way. Well, if you close your hand, you see how now that is plane number 1 goes down your index finger. Plane number 2 goes here, and plane number 3 goes across these 2. Same way here, 3 planes. three planes in the center here, and then three planes. And then if you look at the thumb, it has 1, 2, 3 planes in it this way. Okay, so if you can remember 5 main planes and then 3 planes everywhere. So when I'm coming up this knuckle right here, you see how I'm pitching it back, even in with those 3 planes, and you see how that one's flat on the inside. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm just going to touch those off, and I'm just going to touch those off, just giving it a fighting chance. You don't have to go crazy. Now the flat spot here, this one's already pushed back because of the way I cut it earlier, right? And then we just want to take off just a fuzz right through there. Now, if you're so inclined and you want to get fancy, you can then come back with the number 7 gouge. If you're doing a larger carving, it's going to take away from this one just a little bit, but we'll do what I'm talking about. You see how I've got 1, 2 planes? If I come under this rope right here, robe, and I just touch 2 planes in there, the 3rd plane is underneath the robe. So just sometimes a little cut here or there will give you an extra little something something. Now, when I'm up in here, again, it's like I said earlier, we always want to go after our knives. Use the tool that's going to go up in there. I mean, the chances of us getting our knife up in there and making a flat cut are really slim. So use a gouge. All right. So easy fingers. Also, a couple things to think of. If you go on this knuckle and you go to what most of us call the center of our hand, which is there, and then you measure it from this way, and that's kind of weird. You see how it's not the center of our hand? These 2 fingers are bigger than these 2. So what I do is I guesstimate half, which is here, and then I go below that. So I go below half, below from the thumb. So now I just take half of that space and half of that space. So if that's half here, I want to come down away from the thumb and then go half of that space and half of that space. Now, wood grain is going to be your friend or your enemy, but do not come out here and cut that finger, because if you look, that cut is way down here. So instead, skip over that, and I want to scoop that cut. And what I mean is I want to go in and out. I'm not trying to go straight across. What that's going to do for me is that's going to give me, especially if your hand is out like this and you scoop in here and up, it's going to give you that shadow line of knuckles in there. So right here, I'm going to scoop, scoop, and scoop. Now, if you look at this, let me get it at an angle. You see how the pinky is now lower than his ring finger? And you see how the index finger is now lower than the middle finger? It's because we put those angles that went this way. So now you don't have a bunch of flat hands in there. You don't have a bunch of wonky stuff. Same way here, I'm going to scoop, scoop, and watch this. There's no pinky there, but yes, there is. It's right there, right? Same way here, we're going to scoop, scoop, and scoop. And on a carving of this size, that's about all I do. I don't go crazy putting fingernails, and I mean, what's the point? If you're one of those who want to go crazy and start putting that detail in there, absolutely do it. But you got to think about what carving we're using. So we got a little bit right here. I'm just going to scoop out just a couple of, is it a curve? What is it? Up into there. And I'm going to carve or scoop. And let me thin it out just a little bit right there. We don't want to go crazy in here. Now, these curves are hanging this way. So obviously, we're not going to put lines going up and down. We want the lines to kind of be carved in the same direction that it hangs. So if we just put a couple of hanging or curves in there, it gives you more of illusion that this is a rounder item. Same way with here. If you're carving a rough out, let's say you got a new rough out from um, wherever, and you're in class, you don't want to clean up these cut lines this way. You want them to be cleaned this way because that just helps you with the fabric, right? So we're going to do a belt around this guy real quick, and we're going to do your eyes and your nose and your mouth, and that will go relatively quick, and then we'll be done here in just a little bit. This was no set timeline, and as long as people are watching, we'll keep going. So what did I say we were going to do first? We're going to put a belt. Well, we want the belt to be above his butt, right? We don't want it to be down here. It doesn't make sense. So what I do is I cheat, right? I'm just going to use my finger on the bottom, and I'm just going to come right around here and just get me a little, somewhat of a line. And above that, I'm going to do somewhat of a line. And then I'm going to come around to the front, and I'm going to say, okay, that somewhat of a line goes here, and that bottom one goes there, right? Now we want something hanging down, but we don't want it hanging down in the back. So let's just cheat and say that's hanging down right in here. I had a buddy of mine told me one time, said, look, if there's more than an inch of deadness in a carving, put something there. So we have all this deadness, so we're going to put something there. And we're also going to put just a little line back and forth here, so it goes through the robe. All right. So let's take us a V tool, and we're going to lay away. And what I mean by lay away, some of you guys that are on here have heard this 1,000 times. You want to lay away from what you're carving to be on top. That is the highest point out of everything we drew. So we want to take this V tool and we want to lay away from that cut. And we're going to come in here and we're going to come out right like that. By laying away, you're cutting the side of this, already putting it underneath that fabric. Now this is higher than this. So we want to lay away from the belt. So we're just going to come in there and we're going to lay away from the belt. And we're going to lay away from the belt. And yes, I'm going to say lay away 3 or 4 more times, but we lay away from this side. Notice I didn't go crazy over here, okay? What I want to do now is I want to lay away from this belt. I don't think it's a belt. I think it's more of a tassel or something. Now, you see this flat tool? Remember my original pencil line? Let's just go ahead and get the original pencil line out of there. Again, laying away. I don't like straight lines, so I'm going to kind of go up at an angle on this. The chances of it laying perfectly straight are, you know, slim to 1. And then we got 2 little cuts right here. Well, Dwayne, I can't really get into there. Now, I'm going to tell you how to use that tool that most people have, and we never know what to use them for, and we never pull them out, and they're brand new. Now, I want to show you something. These 2 tools were bought at the same time. And look how much wear this one's got. This one looks brand new. Now, what's the secret tool that I'm talking about? It's this thing, right? The Scorpion. So this is where these guys come into play, because now it's a knife tip. It's a knife blade that's pointing in the opposite direction. And we just want to come in and touch. We want to come in and touch. And now we can lay this thing down and just take your little triangle out. And also, if you are one of those who are struggling with triangles, I'm telling you, now I'm not telling you to go out and buy one of these. What I'm saying is most of us start out buying a beginner set, and this thing comes already in there, and we put it up because we never know where to use it. And it's like, hey, nobody uses them a lot, but that's what it's for. Let me show you this. We're going to do a triangle right here. And I'm not telling you, I'm just telling you, if you already have one of these, look at the benefit. You can come in and just touch these triangles like so. So use that tool. Don't keep it in the box. I kept this thing in a box for 20 years, and I said, you know what? I was about to sell it. I'm like, but nobody wants one. So everybody typically has one. So same way here. Instead of taking that knife tip and dragging it across, I can just come in here again. I'm not telling you to go out and buy one of these things, but if you already have it, use it. They're good for very tight to reach spots. You see how we just plugged that in? And now we can come in here and we could put it right underneath the back of that, like so. Maybe, not quite, almost there. And the rule of thumb is if you, you know, a lot of us do the whole, you know, thing, we blow it. I'll typically blow something 4 or 5 times, and if it don't come out, it probably needs to be cut. So that's a sharp little lesson right there. And we're all guilty of it. Don't think that I'm just over here making fun of myself. Now, just to give this thing a little bit more detail, I'm going to come right here with the number 7. And I'm just going to put a curve like I did in his hat or his head. You see how that just makes it look like it's folded? If you don't believe this, those of you who wear a belt every day, which is most guys, take your belt off and look at it tonight. It's going to have that bend and that curve in it. So something like that. Again, that's the most annoying thing on the planet is I missed my pencil line and we have to go back and get it. And now that we went back and got it, you see we have to recarve. And if you want to come in here and do you a little triangle-y little pull together, right? A little crease line in there. You can do that as well. Something like that. And put you knock off a couple of these little high lines because the fabric being perfectly symmetrical around that belt are slim and none. I'm just thinning that belt out. Couple extra fancy things, and then we'll move over to the eyes. We want to come down here and do some of those little, you know, not too many of them. Couple of the little hangy wrinkles. Maybe this wrinkle's right in close proximity to that other one. 1 or 2 here. Got a little trash right there. Just clean it up. And if you don't like the wrinkles you created, guess what? You can just pop them back off. It doesn't matter, guys. Play with these carvings. Have fun. All right, let's move over to the eyes, which everybody says is hard. Eyes are as hard as you want them to be. What I do on eyes is I try to keep it very simple. As long as you have 2 dots representing your tear duct area and you keep them away from each other, then that's where it's going to be. I'm going to take a small number 11 and I'm going to come up just the inside of that eyebrow and I'm going to come down to that dot, right, like so. Now this eyebrow is different. It's a different shape, but guess what I'm going to do? As long as it ends in that dot, it doesn't matter, right, like so. So now I'm going to put 2 more dots representing the tear duct again. I'm going to take the smallest, teeniest V tool that I have, which is, I don't know, 1 millimeter or something like that. I've got a couple in different brands. This has to be, or happens to be this brand here. These are good tools. Don't let anybody tell you they're not. I'm not a big fan of their knife handles, but their knife blades are sharp and they come ready to cut. And that's the main thing. I'm just going to come under that to that tear duct. Now over here on the outside, I'm just going to come down like so. Now, Dwayne, you didn't use no pencil lines. Well, I didn't use pencil lines for 2 reasons. I never hit the pencil line after I draw it on there. And then I go back. And then the other thing is I draw one eye and then the other eye doesn't match. So then I start carving that pencil line away, and I try to make those eyes match, and it never works out. But again, two different shaped eyes, one's higher than the other, as long as that dot right there and that dot right there is across from each other, and one's not here and the other one's like way down or way high, that's all that matters. Because all you have to do now is whatever shape you have in that opening, get it as round as you can. Now you will, if you've never had a class with me before, I tell everybody to take out that thoughts of triangles in the corner. Because the last time I checked, a triangle was a flat, sharp, pointy item. Instead, what I tell myself and what I am telling myself and what I'm telling you guys is get whatever opening you made as round as you can. Because here's the thing, if you tell yourself to put a triangle in the corner, you're going to put a triangle in the corner. And then you're going to say, well, my eye looks funky or it doesn't look round. That is correct. Because your hands will do exactly what you tell your brain tells your hands to do. So if you're telling yourself to carve the inside corner and the outside corner, well, a corner to me is not unlike or undifferent than a triangle. It is a flat, sharp, pointy item. You can carve square boxes in here as long as you round that square box shape. Everybody says football shape, right? Whatever. It doesn't matter what eye opening you have, as long as you are taking the time and taking small cuts and not chips, because even in my brain, a chip is a flat, big item, right? So just take your time and carve the eye opening as round as you possibly can. And if you just focus on getting it round, you will come to find out that the shape, in my opinion, there's going to be people who differ. There's going to be people who say it has to be symmetrical, and that's okay. That's just their style. But I look at it like, if I can get it simple and I can say they don't match and they look like they fit, but they don't match, well, I can show them a picture of me and my eyes don't match, my nose don't match, nothing matches, right? So I try to keep it a lot simpler than matchy-matchy, because it takes a lot of effort to get those rascals to match. And if they don't match and you don't match them on purpose, it's then called expression. And what are we all chasing is, look at the expression in those eyes, or look at the expression or the movement that that guy has, right? I also don't frame the upper shadow line all the way around, because to me that looks like you're just creating a happy rainbow in there. What I did do is I removed a slice right there going downward, and I removed a slice here going downward. So now when you come back in and you take your roundy tool, I'm just going to use this one I've got, and you put the representation of a small eye bag underneath that eye, right through there, right on the outside of these, right here, where that round spot comes up into there, that shadow that you created, don't go into the eye, go just below the eye, like this right here, and put you a little triangle, and that's going to tuck that lower eyelid under that top one. And now that I've zoomed in here, you see that flat spot that I've got, or that sharp spot that I got right there? I didn't see that down here. I seen that when I zoomed in. Well, why did I see it when I zoomed in? Because it zoomed, well, look at that, it popped off. It was just a chip hanging there. All right, so I'm telling you that to tell you this, as I do this other triangle in the same spot on the other side. There's nothing wrong with taking your camera that you have, taking a picture of your face, and then zooming in. Because last time I checked, my glasses just make it clearer. They don't zoom it in for me. So take a picture with your phone, zoom in, find those little spots you don't like. When you find out that you've carved your eyes, I look at the shoulders. Now, this one is very, very obvious. He's looking that way. We don't stare at somebody and look at them dead on, right? It's just creepy. We kind of get close. So I'm going to look at this guy and say that he's trying to look somewhere further up in the tree there. Maybe there's a squirrel that's took his lunch. Maybe there's a squirrel that needs to become lunch, right? We don't know. But this will paint over with full white paint. And now he doesn't look creepy standing on my my carving bench or paint bench for the next 6 months. Now let's carve a mouth on this guy, and we will call him D-U-N. He will be done because, well, I lied to you. Hold on. Let's carve a book in here in about a minute. And let's go there, there, and there. This is going to be the spine of his book, right? So we want to make a little roundy something about right in there, a little roundy something right in there. And you're exactly right. We're going to use a little roundy something to just pull those out. The only thing I'm focused on at this point right now is getting rid of my pencil line. So we went about a 1/16 of an inch deep there. We're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to chase that pencil line, move my finger out of the way. And now we're going to do the same thing over here, moving my finger out of the way. Now, if you want to get extra fancy and run you a couple, little V-tool lines, whoops, that was almost in the leg. If you want to run you a couple of V-tool lines through here to represent some shadow lines, you can. But that's entirely as to how much effort you want to put. I don't like that little thin one. I'd much rather have a bigger one. All right, just a couple little center lines. You're not going to do all the pages, right? It's not a 3-page book. Just something to hold whatever antiquing juice that you use. All right. If you want to get super fancy, right in here, there's a ridge. And if you're mounting this on something, get a big gouge, just cross a line. Let's say the line is here and the line is here. Well, Dwayne, why would you waste your time to put it on top? If you're going to do it, you may as well do it right, correct? So we're just going to go across that. This is also a good test for your gouges because you're in solid end grain there. All right. And now when you set this guy on a flat surface, I don't even know if I have a flat surface, right? Let's see if I can find a, here we go. We can use the bottom of this. So this is your base, right? Now you've got a tiny little shadow line underneath there. Well, you need one on top. So we're just going to come in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to come into here like this, and then we're going to rotate this tool when it gets right here away from the foot. You see how we just rotated this blade inward, and then that blade cuts all the way up to the foot. Then you touch it right there, and you now have a little bit, let's see if the shadow line will work. There it is. A little bit of a curve there. Same way here. It's a little deeper, but we're just going to get to the foot, and then we're going to rotate the blade around and then just touch the foot. Now you can go right here, or you can take a smaller gouge, which I'm going to do, and I'm just going to touch it this way, and I'm just going to touch it that way, just to give me a little bit of shadow. Doesn't have to be much, because again, the book's going to be green, purple, orange, whatever color you paint it. Knock off the corners on each side, the top and the bottom. And the reason we knock it off on the bottom, again, is when we set it down on our base, it's got a little shadow line. And that's all I do for a book. So let's do a mouth. A mouth is not unlike, what's the story I'm trying to think of? The little fun thing that I do in class, or when I'm over explaining something, because I typically over explain a lot of things, is think of a mouth as a heart. we are in love, so we're kissing because our heart is full and blah, 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 right? So let me grab out the handy dandy scrap sheet of paper. Don't ignore my staff that I was carving for something else. All right, that was a wizard I did a bird head staff on. Okay, so we are in love and we want to kiss somebody, right? Your mouth is not undifferent than that right there. So if we think in terms of a mouth, that's what you want to think about. This becomes his, what's that, Filstrom, snot trough, whatever it is, right? So that's his big lips. Because just like when we started, we can always go smaller, we can't go bigger. So how do I create that? Well, I want to come in here just like so, and I want to put me a line from this smile line over here. Now this is another straight in line, and I want to come underneath that just a little bit for a relief cut because the bottom lip is lower than the top lip. Now, how do we make this a heart? It'll make sense in a minute. I promise you. If not, we'll just wing it as we go along. Now, to create the upper lip, most people would say, hey, that's good enough, but I'm going to take and come way up here and come down toward the center, right? And then come in with that again. You see how now it's creating more of an upper lip. So same way here, we want to come way up here and come down. That's what creates your upper lip. Now, if you want a toothless rascal, you want that upper lip to be rolling down in and the bottom lip to be rolling. Well, here one. Now, like this. You see where I'm coming from? Now, it's going to make sense more here because you see how this goes up and then down? That's your heart right there. Same way here on this guy. This is your top of your heart, and then it comes down, and then we just clip off the bottom of it to make it bottom lip. Same way on this one, no matter which one I pull up here, if you start thinking in terms of a heart now, it'll pop in and you can see it. So stop doing the little lines. Even though this guy's higher on this side, it's still going to be that heart shape. Remember the flat spot that we had that helps you with your Filstrom? We're just going to come in here now with some sort of gouge. If I can find one in this pile of stuff I got laying around. And we're just going to come right into that flat spot, and we're just going to tickle out a little bit of a curve. We're going to relieve that cut with yet another, wait, I got two knives. Yeah, I got two knives that are almost identical. So let's put this one up. I shouldn't have three knives out. It's kind of odd. So you can see the heart is starting to flare, but this side goes deeper because he's smirking, and this side is higher because of that smirk, okay? So you could stop right there and be perfectly fine, but you want to create the bottom part of that heart. So what I do is I come down through here, and I come all the way at the chin. You see that? And now I'm going to come here, and I'm going to be very ginger because my wood grain, I don't know which way it's going. You see how now it's a point down there? So now all we got to do is tickle off the bottom of that lip right there. And that is an easy peasy mouth. Now, let's finish up the nostrils, and we're going to call this done. I didn't see the nostrils until just now. So what I dislike about books and magazines is they'll say, I use a 5/8 number, blah, 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 blah. Well, you don't know that that's what your carving shape's going to need. I've broken something right there. You see that little line? So we're just going to tickle it off. All right. And I'm going to tickle it off right there. There we go. It's less broken now. It happens. So in other words, for dramatic purposes, this is too big, right? This one, in my opinion, is just on the border of being too big. So let's find something smaller than this, and let's go ahead and put these tools out of the way because it's getting harder to find some tools than all these that I pulled out. This one, that one looks just right. What you want is a little bit of meat on the back side of the nostril and a little bit of meat on the front side of the nostril. You don't want it to come all the way to the center. So now I can push this tool. Now again, look at the blade of this tool. You see how it goes out and then down. A lot of us are looking at this shaft instead of that blade angle. So again, this is slightly downward, but look at my blade angle. My blade angle is straight in. So if you come straight in, you're actually carving down. But what you don't have to do, because we took everything away from the nose, is you don't have to come down here because there's not even an eighth of an inch of wood up there. You're going to take the whole nose off. And I've seen people do it in class, and they go right here, they push in, and then they do one of these numbers every single time. And they think that they're slicing through the bottom of that cut. What they're doing is they're fracturing the top of this blade because you're creating fulcrum, right? So again, straight in with my blade angle, not my tool angle, right? And it does just that right there. Same way here. We're going to come a little lower. And why are we coming a little lower? Just because we can, because my nose is horrible. My nostril flares don't even look the same. One of them's like a slit and one of them's like an angle. But it doesn't matter, because what you want to do is you want to do this very technical cut that it takes years of practice. Is you take, and not with that blade, you want a thicker blade, right? You take this and you just push it down, right? All you're wanting to do is just pull that down. Now, the only reason I'm doing that is because the fibers are going up and down the grain, okay? So now once you tickle that little piece out, right in the very top of this curve, and I'm gonna try to do this way up here. All right, so right in the top of this curve down here, you wanna put a little triangle right in the back side of that, a tiny triangle. And what it's gonna do, and you just, look, don't change this angle here. If that's the angle of your mouth, don't come in here and do one of these, all right? Come straight up, just like you did, and you see that little chip that came out. So now when you look up in there, it looks like it goes for days because you're focusing on a tiny point as opposed to that roundness. I got a little trash right there that I seen when I zoomed in by the magic of lifting the carving up to my camera. Okay, and I'm going to put another triangle right here in the bottom part of these. And again, I'm following the same contour as my mouth. I'm not changing it. I'm taking that triangle out, and you're focusing up in there on a point as opposed to this. Now you can come back, and this is where you take a picture of your phone. You see that little chip I've got right there? Luckily, it was already free. It just wasn't out. But that's pretty much it, guys. This stuff up here, I'll leave you with this. I won't do all of it, but just take you a sharp gouge. This is the only time in history I will ever say carve hair in just kind of a straight line, because it works on these guys. And just come up and do some straight up and down cuts. And the straighter and more choppy you get these, the better off they are. Now, that's the only time on this monk that I'll tell you that. Otherwise, I do kind of crazy, wonky hair. Here, I'll show you something close by. Short, choppy. This has been on the paint table forever and ever. So I'll typically do like short, choppy strokes. And this, unfortunately, will probably be on the paint table for quite some time because it's a nightmare and I'm an idiot for carving it. But I'm not an idiot for carving it. I'm an idiot because I hate painting and I do over crazy exaggerated stuff with details. All right, I'm gonna take the carving glove off. We're gonna wrap this guy up and I'm gonna show you all four sides of this rascal, and then we're gonna call him done. So right at 3-hour carve, and that's with over explaining everything. So you can imagine that this probably wouldn't take you that long. All right, and then you can also use this pattern. It doesn't have to be a month. You can do Dracula. You can do the Jedi stuff. You can do Obi-Wan Kenobi like we talked about. So I'll post that pattern in the next couple of days, probably Monday-ish. and then we'll go from there. But this is the front view of the torso. This is what would be his right side. This is the back. This is what would be his left side. And then let's look up at his face, right? Now you can even come in here, and I know I told you we were done, but you can even come in here and narrow that nose and not even get on the eye. All we have to do is come in here, pitch it up. We're going to narrow the bridge of the nose. See how much wood we took off in there? So what I'm telling you is it's done when you say it's done. It's not done because you've got a nose in there. It's not done because you've got the eyes in there. Something hanging right there. There it is. A little chip hanging in there. All right. Play around with your carvings. There is a gazillion different ways to get to a finished project. All right. So in closing, because some of you may have came on later, in closing, if you haven't joined Wood Carving Academy yet, you absolutely need to. The reason being is this is the type of instructions that you'll get. You'll get a finished project on the instructions, and it's not that much. It's less than, oh my gosh, it's less than a cup of coffee a week in a monthly aspect if you're going to one of these big stores with a drive-through to get coffee. It's for what the content that you can watch in a month's time, it's an amazing value. The other thing I want to tell you about is Dwayne Gosnell Wood Carving. I have a fully automated, not automated, whatever, a fully functioning website. And I also do classes like this once a month with different projects in them. So guys, I hope you had as much fun as I had carving this guy. Hopefully you got something out of it. Give Wood Carving Academy a look-see. Even if you join for a month or two, I don't know how many videos I've got on there, but I am just one of many, many excellent carvers that are teaching instruction on there. Guys, have a great evening, and I'll talk to you soon.